All right, so we're doing Cancer Story Part 2. I just realized that it's been a while since we did the first one, and some of you have been asking, and the lighting seems to split my face in half, so. So we left off with, I decided to do surveillance. So this is like mid to late February of 2012. So just to back up a little bit, my options were surveillance, chemo, or radiation. They told me at the time, if I remember correctly, chemo would give me 99% chance of no reoccurrence. Radiation would be 95%, and then surveillance was 80. So we went with surveillance, right? Everything was fine post-surgery for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then I remember I was at the gym and I just started getting really weak and really tired. I was about half as strong as I was before, just instantly. It was really, really crazy. So I'd go in and I wasn't lifting really heavy, but I would go in and all of a sudden I just couldn't move anything. And I had no endurance. It was weird. So I had an idea of what it might be, because when you go through that stuff, you have, different hormones that fluctuate on a daily basis. They get all screwed up. And I have been learning a lot about that for the past 6 years. In 2006, I had to have my left adrenal gland removed. So since then, I've been learning a lot about it. So I went in to talk to my oncologist, and I also went in, well, there was a couple things. I went to see him, and I also went to see the initial doctor who I saw, right? So the initial doctor I saw first, and I had him order a hormone panel. So we were gonna find out where testosterone was and estradiol and all that stuff, right? So I also went to the oncologist. I don't remember which was first. So I think they were around the same time. But I went to the oncologist and I sat in a room. They had me sit there I waited for about, I wanna say 2 hours before this guy came in to say anything. So the door was over here and I'm sitting in this chair, looking out the window in front of me, just hanging out. 2 hours go by, he walks in and he says something to the effect of, what's going on? I said, well, I'm really tired. Like, I'd been falling asleep when I would drive. I fell asleep 5 times on the way to work, which is a 20-minute drive, 5 times. And I only woke up before my car was smashing into a tree or something like that. Something was not right, So I told him, and he just he came in, turned around, walked back over to leave, put his hand on my shoulder and said, hey, Lance Armstrong's doing okay. And then he just left. And I was just like, this guy's fired. He is fired because I don't care about Lance Armstrong. Ironically enough, that was the beginning where everybody started telling me Lance Armstrong was doing okay, and it drove me nuts. So anyway, I never went back to that guy. So I went to the other doctor, the regular doctor, and I had my lab results. And testosterone was pretty low for what it should be for my age. It was the level of like 70-year-old man, which is still technically normal, but that's why I felt so tired all the time. And estradiol, which is a type of estrogen, was extremely high, which as a man is scary because that's the female hormone. You're supposed to have it in a certain range to be healthy, but you don't want it high. It can cause a lot of bad things. One of those things being growing boobs, which I did not want to have happen, of course. So I go in, I'm sitting there, and the doctor, he looks at them and he goes, yeah, they look okay. And I said, no, they don't. The testosterone's pretty low and the estrogen is really high. And he said, that's no big deal. And I said, it is a big deal because high estrogen can promote men growing boobs, gynecomastia. And he said, that's not what happens. And I said, yes, it is. You're a doctor. He goes, honestly, I don't know what this stuff means. And I said, I don't know if you should be a doctor at all, because clearly you don't know, by your own words, how to be a doctor, at least for me. So you're fired. So I had no doctors anymore because I had to fire them all. So I started a search for another oncologist, and I started a search for another doctor, regular doctor. Now, I found a guy at the Seidman Cancer Center satellite office in Beechwood, right? So I made an appointment to go see this guy. And this is just to basically get a new guy, because the surveillance plan was every 3 months you get tested. So you get CT scans and blood work until I think it was about maybe the first year or something, 2 years. Then it goes to every 6 months. And then after 5 years, you can say you're cancer-free, and then it's once a year forever. That's surveillance. So, so I go in to see this new doctor, okay? And I waited, I want to say like 2.5 or 3 hours, to the point of where I was about ready to just leave, right? And I mean, it's not like it's right down the street. So he comes in, and really cool guy. I don't even remember his name because he passed me off to his partner. So from there, explained what was going on. He said, okay, great. And then he said, you know what? I want to introduce you to this other guy. Why don't you go see him? He's in the downtown office of downtown Cleveland, at the main office. So I said, okay, cool. So I went and met with that guy. That guy came in, and the first words out of his mouth were, so you've been seeing a lot of oncologists. You gonna leave me too? Just like that. Deadpan, just. And I said, I don't know. It depends if you're horrible or not. And I said, if you mention Lance Armstrong, I'm probably gonna leave. And so he was an asshole, but he was cool because he was just straight up for the most part, so I thought. So I saw that guy, and we were doing our regular tests. I would go there every 3 months. It was always me and then a room full of 80-year-old people who are, because that's who mostly has cancer, is old people. The one follow-up I had, we'll talk about this more in depth in another video because it actually plays a role in something, but was at the main Seidman Center, and I had to kind of hang out there. And that place is the saddest place ever. So I went in, I walked around, and I noticed everybody was in groups, families, and there was one person of every group that you could tell they were about to die. And everyone had smiles on their faces, but you could tell they were all fake because they knew that person was gonna die. It was crazy. So I'm going to this new guy. I keep going in. He comes in, talks to me for 20 minutes about how's work, how's this, how's that. Oh, everything's fine. See you later, right? So I finally get to the point where I've got 6 months till the next scan. And he tells me at the scan before, he said, look, you're the healthiest person I've ever seen. I don't think you ever have to worry about anything like this again. And I said, yes, thank you, awesome, good to hear. So I left. Like I said, 6 months was the next scan. So 6 months, I go in and do the scan, and the people that do the CAT scans said, so do they just call you with the results, or how does it work? And I said, no, I go in, we sit down, we talk, and they said, man, he wants that money. And I said, hold on a second, are you telling me that all those times that I went in, and he just talked to me for 20 minutes about my job, how's life, how's your job? And then he said, you're okay, you can leave. He could have just called me and told me I was okay. I didn't have to drive all the way down there and hang out for 2 hours waiting. And they said, yeah. I was like, son of a bitch, okay. So I was not feeling awesome about this guy anymore. So I went in for the follow-up, and I waited for 2.5 hours in the waiting room. And based off what he said last time, I was like, I went up to the front. I said, I gotta leave because I got other things to do. I can't just hang out here all day. And so they said, okay, hold on. So they took me in the back room where I waited another hour, hour and a half. And I finally went out and just found the nearest, nurse walking by and said, I'm going to leave. This is ridiculous. And so they said, he really doesn't want you to leave. So he came in and he said, well, we've noticed a lymph node that's been growing for about the last 15 months. And I said, you told me last time, 6 months ago, that I was the healthiest person you've ever seen. The math doesn't add up, Doc. I'm sorry. So he said, well, it is what it is. So I recommend that you get some radiation. Let me set you up with an appointment with Dr. whatever, some radiation oncologist guy. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. I'm gonna have to process this information. And he said, you know what, why don't we just do chemo right now? I'll go get the stuff. And he got up, and I was just like, man, I'm not sure I like this guy anymore. I said, stop. I have to think about this. I have to process this information because this is completely different than what you told me the last time. This is literally the opposite. So I said, set up the appointment with the radiation oncologist. We'll go talk and, I'll figure it out from there. So this is I want to say it was June or July of 2015 by now, or 2014. I don't know, I'd have to do the math on it. So it was one of those years. Let's see, 15. So I guess it was 3 years of every 3 months, yeah, because it was 3 years later. And he also said, yeah, we typically expect to see you back here in 3 years. And I said, why did you tell me that everything was cool if you expect in 3 years for there to be a reoccurrence? What are you thinking? So I don't know how long it was until my appointment with the radiation oncologist, but I went in, and this has no bearing on anything, but the guy had one of his index fingers, there was like the last knuckle, it was just a bone. And I'm assuming there was skin over it, but it looked like if you were to just tear off all the skin from here and just have like a skeleton finger, that's what it looked like. And it was creeping me out. So I know that doesn't have bearing on his abilities, but I was just like, how did that happen? What happened? And I'm thinking this, I'm still paying attention, but a little weird. So I talked to him for about 2 hours, and he seemed to know his stuff, but he's also a radiation oncologist. And to me, he sounded like a salesman. He sounded like he was just like, yeah, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go in, we're gonna hit it from here and here. And the way he described the radiation process was way different than the first radiation oncologist I talked to that recommended surveillance. It was enough different to where I was concerned, because I said, with radiation, if you're gonna pump in, radiation laser beams into my body, and it's gonna be around my liver and my kidneys and all that, isn't that bad? And he said, oh yeah, well, I'll try my best to steer away from your liver so that there's not complications. And complications like liver cancer? Yeah. Okay, awesome. So I talked to him for 2 hours. Like I said, he knew his stuff. He clearly knew a lot about radiation oncology, but didn't seem like it was something I should do. If you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And that's what it was like. So I didn't do it. I decided to go another route. I decided to do my own treatment based off of things that I knew about cellular metabolism and how the body works. I think we'll end this video right now because it's getting a little long, almost 15 minutes. So, yes, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for part 3, which I'll try to make sooner rather than later. We'll talk about a little bit more and go from there. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Hit subscribe, that way you'll get a notification when new videos go up. And I don't know, until next time. All right, thanks guys.